Enzo. Oh, this is probably too long for a voice note.
Hey Claire, I know. Save it for the podcast.
Your space for an unfiltered and candid conversation.
Skip the small talk and dive in deep.
Hello, Familia.
Hi, Familia.
Welcome
To a new episode.
Do you notice something different?
There's something different around here.
Like,
what happened in this place? So, yeah, you might notice we're in a different, not our regular studio.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So today we're having like a really special chat.
We have a special guest with us.
Also, the first time we have a guest in an episode, which is super crazy.
And where are we recording today?
So we're recording at the podcast room. Mm-hmm. So podcast room, they were really, really nice with us, and they basically invite us to be in their new studio here in Great Portland Street.
Just off of Oxford Street. You can book this very lovely studio. It gives like a living room feel. We're so excited to be in this gorgeous studio, honestly. It's like such an upgrade for us. So thank you so much, guys, for letting us use the space.
We need like a special space for this special conversation.
Yeah, so today we are joined by a very special guest. We have Talycia here from Bloody Good Period. Welcome.
Welcome. This is so exciting.
So exciting.
Sometimes we talk to each other so long and it feels like we're kind of talking to our own walls.
Exactly.
So finally we're talking with someone else.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
I love being the third. It's so
much.
fun.
So if you could tell us a little bit about Bloody Good Period.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bloody Good Period is a charity that seeks to support refugees and asylum seekers with accessing products that they need most. So that's period products as well as education. So we have an education program as well that are, basically sessions that support people that need education around products and maybe wider health concerns as well around their periods and menstrual health in general. But I work on the employer side, so a little bit different. So what I do is I work for Bloody Good Employers, and that's how we kind of met, right, was through that employer side of things. So Employers is a scheme, a social enterprise that seeks to revolutionise the way that we think about the workplace. So we go into workplaces, anything from your big four corporate to a charity sector organisation, and talk a little bit about periods and menopause and what we can do to make sure that these conversations are happening at every level.
That's so cool. That's so interesting. And thank you so much for joining us. I think obviously we love what you do so much. We have a special interest in periods and women's health in general. So
definitely we have touched on this before in the podcast, where I think it's really good to have someone with all the knowledge that you do.
All the period knowledge.
All the period knowledge,
exactly. I was just wondering if you are kind of, a person who has a period and you kind of struggle with that and you're struggling with that at work, can you kind of suggest a good way for people to kind of bring this to their employer? Or if people are going through like the menopause as well, what would you sort of suggest for that?
Yeah, 100%. I think to start with, these conversations are so difficult to have because if you're brought up in the UK, there's one class when you're in year 6 where you're split off into 2 different rooms. The boys go and learn how to put a condom on a banana and the girls learn about periods and how to have sex and all the horrible things that are to do with being assigned female at birth. So we hold a lot of trauma about these conversations, and I think the first thing we've got to think about is thinking about unpacking that shame and being able to handle these conversations with so much sensitivity. Experiencing pain on your period is not normal. It's not a normal experience, and no one should have to go through that and struggle alone. We always talk about discomfort versus pain as well. So in terms of having that conversation with your workplace, it's the best place to go is your line manager or maybe a colleague that you trust the most, to be able to start having those conversations. And if you feel discomfort in having that conversation, it's about starting really small. Sometimes something just like saying the word period can be really impactful. I mean, there are so many euphemisms in the English language. I mean, even in other languages, we have people come across and say that within our sessions, there are usually people that speak a lot of French that say, the English are coming is the reason. That is one of the,
oh my God, that's so bad.
literally is one of their
so
euphemisms
bad.
that they use. So we live and thrive in a culture full of shame and stigma around periods. So just starting with a base level of giving yourself a bit of grace around it and trying your best is where we can start.
Yeah.
That's really interesting what you say about like how they separate the boys and the girls in school, because that was exactly my experience. Like, even though I'm from Latin America, but I think probably our generation or the generation before as well, we have that experience as well. I remember like literally going to a room to like how to put the condom on, and then the girls go to somewhere or activity, and I think everything I knew about periods is because my mom, it was always very open about it.
That's good.
And she was always like, oh, if she didn't feel good or something, it's like, can you go to the pharmacy and get some pads for me? And you know, at the beginning, obviously, I remember, I don't know, the first time probably was like 13, 14. It was very strange. I was like, because I grew up thinking like that's something for women, and it's something like, it's not for me. I shouldn't touch the topic. You know, it was very taboo. And I think that really helped me because she was open and about it. So it's kind of weird to think that. And I just wonder, like, do you think, have you seen any, in your experience, any change in the new generation, or at least how maybe parents are approaching this with their kids, especially if it's like, you know, a boy, a sign boy, and all of that, all of these things?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Bloody Good Period and Bloody Good Employees, generally we have a trans-inclusive process when we talk about periods. So we use the terms women and people that menstruate, and we also understand that trans people have periods as well because of the experiences they choose to undergo in terms of their transition as well. So some people can transition by take socially transitioning, or potentially through medical transition as well. So it can change, but we want to make sure we're inclusive across the board. I think with your question about like, have things changed? For me, I think in the work that I do, I have noticed a massive change in my personal and professional life, because people are so confused to start with. They are so confused. When I first started the job, everyone around me was like, oh, periods, are you sure that's like, are you going to be okay doing that? Like, is that
so
really, taboo? Is that really personal? Like, should you be talking about that? And then as the time has gone on, people have become much more welcome and open and comfortable. But even in terms of generations, I don't think it's a generational thing necessarily, but it's an education thing. So I was really lucky growing up. My dad was the one that always would go and grab the pads and the paracetamol.
Oh, okay.
I was so lucky. And that's something that a lot of people didn't have, and a lot of people, specifically because I'm from a South Asian community, they didn't have that. There's a lot more like shame and stigma around that when you're from a minoritized community, for sure. So things are changing, and it's about having the conversation, and that is, again, like such a scary thing to do. But I think things are changing. I wouldn't be in this job if I didn't think there was hope for change.
That's really good.
Yeah, 100%.
I remember actually when I was in year 6, I remember our teacher, who was really lovely. Like, I remember her being really cool, but she like gathered us all around and got like a glass of Ribena and put a tampon in the glass of Ribena. And obviously if you put a tampon in like a massive amount of liquid, it's going to get huge. And so she pulled it out, and we were all like, like, and it was like, what on earth?
That seems like the worst education
honestly,
ever.
I think she was trying to help, but I don't know what else she could have done. But it was like, I mean, there are so many things that you could do. And actually, I guess that leads on to another question of like, you know, kind of, if you have, like, I've got like little nieces, if you've got like a daughter, what is a kind of a way that you guys would kind of approach sort of starting to have these really period positive conversations from, you know, like 8 or even younger, before their period actually comes in?
Yeah, I think it's got to be even younger than 8, to be honest, because within the school system, children and young people have periods from the age of maybe 7 or 8 now. So people's cycles are, you know, they work differently. And having that conversation, I guess, if you've got young kids around you or young children around you, it's about exploring like their curiosity with them. So I know I do all the time, always have a pad or a tampon in my bag. If my niece or my nephew end up finding that, I'm going to explain to them what it is. And I'm going to say once a month, you know, Auntie has a bleed and this is what soaks up the blood. So then we can put it in a little wrapper and then put it away. And that happens once a month for a week. And if they ask why, we say, that's so, you know, I'm able to release the egg in order to make sure that I can have a baby, or if I don't want to have a baby, etc. And, you know, better education, of course. I'm really babbling here. But generally just explain the top line and use the right terminology. I think making sure that we use the correct words and the scientific words with children and young people from a young age allows them to be able to advocate for themselves and feel a little bit more confident when they're older as well.
Definitely. And I think you made a good point. I actually just caught myself because I was like thinking about my nieces. I don't have nephews or I don't have like a son or anything yet. But it's interesting, it's kind of like that internalized sexism because I was like, well, why wouldn't I actually speak about that if I have a nephew or if I have a son? Of course, like I wouldn't hide it. But it's that kind of thing of, I think we're still, because, you know, we're like 34, 35. So we've sort of been brought up with that thing of like, I think, I don't know if you can kind of relate, but it was like so common to like just shove like a pad up your sleeve and like run off to the toilet. And that's something that I'll be like, if I have a daughter or with my nieces, like so keen for them to like encourage them not to do that and just like have that pad, like wear it like proudly and just be like, I'm going to the toilet to change my pad because I've got my period, because it's nothing to be ashamed of. But I think you're right, like we just carry this real like secrecy and shame around it. Yeah,
it's a really good point, and that makes me think like how probably gender it is, like all this, right? And going what we were talking about before, like, and everything I know about this is because I'm not straight. So all my female friends, they feel really comfortable to coming to me and talking about their periods, how they feel, how they don't feel. So I think I know a lot about it because there's a freedom to speak with me because they wouldn't feel judged or they wouldn't feel like we're out by it. So that makes me think, and obviously it's a very gendered question or conversation, but thinking about like if it's a straight man, for example, and they have a relationship with a woman over a person that periods and have a period anyway, like how, maybe what do you think would be the best way to go or how to approach this conversation? Because I think like we're in 2025 and it's still like I have like straight friends or straight family members like, they are in the relationship that don't talk about their periods, they don't feel comfortable sharing their experiences. And I think that it's like a huge problem also, like sexism it has many layers there, but I think it just kind of like isolates even more the topic, and it becomes even skips like a taboo. So what do you think about it? How could be the approach of like, if, for example, let's say if I'm a straight man, how can I approach this, or the other way around, if you're a woman, how can you approach this with your person, your couple, your friends, or how we can make this more maybe simple or easier?
No, 100%.
If that makes sense.
It does, it does.
I know I went all over the place, but it's just
No,
like, I feel like I'm
great.
trying to put all the ideas together because it's kind of like,
we live in a world where we have such like a myriad of different relationships now, and it's about like, how do we comfortably have these conversations about our bodies with other people, basically, right? And I'm a queer woman myself, so this is something that I've experienced on both sides, where I now know that I have a period condition. I don't quite know what it is yet. We're thinking maybe PCOS, we're thinking endometriosis, we're in that journey. And I've had such incredible support from partners in the past. With that, I've had, floods and leaks and bleeds and been able to communicate that with my partner. But that was because of the understanding from a younger age, I think. And it's so interesting that in the workplace, when we come in and talk about periods in the workplace and we run a 1-hour session, the main question that gets asked is, how can I be a better boyfriend?
Oh, wow.
And it does like reduce you to tears a little bit.
That's a good one,
it's really sweet. Or how can I be a better dad to my daughters with periods?
Good to hear men trying to be better.
Like corporate men as well. Yeah, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Like, go on, man.
Oh, men. And their main responses are, the main responses we give is being an open communicator, listen, and be proactive. I think something we've both spoken about is like having pads stocked or having tampons stocked. And if you're someone that uses sustainable products like period pants, for example, just making sure they're washed and ready to go when they need to be ready for. And if you are someone that craves on their period, some people crave sweet things, some people need to eat a lot more up to during their luteal phase. I know I eat like 4 meals a day during my luteal phase because my energy just drops when I'm menstruating. So just making sure the house is stocked with all the best snacks, like really practical things. And if someone's trying to be healthy, for example, all the best snacks that are also healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So
just
being like attuned to your partner's needs, and that's just an example for relationships on the whole. Really, it's like even if you're living with your housemates or your flatmates and you're in a house share, like just making sure you're all aware of when each other's cycles are and treating each other with respect and kindness and a bit of generosity.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think this is like a really important conversation to kind of like close this gap between like, if we're talking about women and men and all of that, and how during time there seem to be two separate words, and it's the men, it's the women. You have your problems, I have my problems. I don't need to get mixed with your problems. That's a female problem or whatever problem, and that's like so toxic and affects us in everything else and how we, you know, our relationship of any level, right?
Totally. I think it's interesting that like men are asking that. I love that because I feel like often, you know, like the work often kind of lands on the woman. And I often think like, I have a really supportive boyfriend, but I think it's like, it's not really our job to like educate men on it. So I love that they're asking that. And like, you know, you're kind of explaining like, well, these are some things that you can do, and like for them to be proactive as well. So
men
it's not
be
like
better. That's the conclusion.
But it sounds like they are being a bit better.
They are, and I think the main response is they want to do better, but they don't really know where to start.
That's such a good point.
And the difficulty of being in that position of wanting to be a better person but not really knowing how to be is such a difficult place to be. So we do hold a lot of empathy for those that don't menstruate, and we want to be able to open up that line of communication more. And something we have noticed, particularly with those workplace sessions, is that men will tend to not attend because they want to make sure that the space is there and available for women to be able to talk amongst themselves comfortably. And I'm like, oh, that's actually really sweet, but please come.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like, please come, because we want you to understand and learn a little bit.
You mentioned endometriosis.
Yes, yeah.
So you said that you're kind of on your own potential journey about that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
I actually have stage 4 endometriosis.
Oh, gosh, bless you.
So I got diagnosed when I was 27.
Yeah.
So obviously for a lot of our audience, they might be dealing with like endo or PCOS or other kind of period related, you know, kind of issues, etc. I would be wondering if you can suggest again some like tools, because I think in my experience that's been quite difficult to navigate in the workplace because, as I'm sure you know, like endo it's not only bad when you're on your period. Unfortunately, it can affect you throughout the month. So kind of some tips for our listeners on how to, you know, bring that up again if it's going to be more of kind of like a long term throughout the month thing, and like maybe their workplace might need to make some kind of like arrangements for them, if you could suggest anything.
Yeah, 100%. I think the main thing I can recommend for workplaces and for people with period conditions is just advocate for flexibility, be able to work from home, be able to manage your own schedule how you need to, because that is probably one of the main reasons that I continue to support this work, is because of the flexibility that I'm allowed at Bloody Good Period. This week, I'm on my period this week, and my stomach has been double the size. You know, when you get the bloat and you 100%. Just cannot control it. Yeah. And I'm really thankful for elasticated waistbands. Yeah. And on Tuesday, I had an office day actually, and I was keeling over in the M&S at lunch break. And I still felt that shame of not being able to talk to my manager or my colleague about it, and felt like I still had to be, you know, strong and not communicate that I was in pain. And then we got back to the office and I was like, oh, I'm just having a bit of period pain. My manager, the CEO, Rachel, and my colleague all said, why are you here? Go home. And then I realised, I reflected on it, and I was like, I actually just want to be silent and nonverbal and just be around people as well. Like sometimes you don't want to have to leave in order to get the rest you need. You sometimes do still want to be around people and be social, and you just want the permission to be like, I just want to sit here and maybe write 2 emails today but still be in the office and have that social side of things. So just the flexibility, I think, to be able to
And on the flip side of that, sort of like for employers as well, what would you say are kind of like 3 things that they can do if anybody's watching who kind of like has their own company or anything like that? What are some things that they could implement to make things easier for people who have period conditions?
This isn't an ad, but there are these things that really help me. So what we recommend generally is having a little bit of a holistic wellbeing kit in workplaces. So things like if you feel comfortable to have painkillers, you can have painkillers at the workplace, having spare period pants, spare underwear, but also spare pads and tampons. But the thing that I absolutely love, there are these cool patches.
Okay.
You can buy them in Boots and Superdrug. I think the branding's like green. I can't remember what they're called. Maybe the brand's BU. I can't remember, but they're menthol patches, and you can stick them on your back or your shoulders.
Oh, wow.
If you can just buy a bulk like package of those and just keep them in your offices. For people that menstruate, they are magic. Like, they're absolute magic. I really recommend them.
I need
actually.
to try
yeah,
that.
I really, because that's the thing that got me out of my hole last week. Was earlier this week was putting one of those patches on, because they're like minty and they
like
fizz
heated.
a little bit. They're cooling instead
they're
of
cooling,
heated.
yeah.
So I would normally wear like a hot water bottle or a heated pad, but in workplaces those can have health and safety concerns, obviously, because of boiling water. So these cooling patches have saved my life.
Definitely check that out. I have a hot water bottle, and so like knows he it's a he, and he's called Mr. Hottie.
I love
so
that.
he's like a long body one, and I literally he's like
long one.
another like limb. He's just always with me
He's
at
a
all
long boy. I
times.
love that.
Exactly.
I was thinking about something before having this conversation, and I wanted to ask you, like, if you have seen any change, like, in the industry or the products that are created for period. Because I think, on my experience, what I have seen is like all these products are very like women oriented. They're all pink and flowers, and it's very like gender. And as we were speaking before, like not only like women that have periods. It's way more than that. I think we are in a point nowadays that probably we understand that better. Yeah. And I was wondering, have you seen any change, at least in the UK, on how these things are
like marketed kind of thing.
Yeah, because I think that could really influence.
That's
like
a
a
good
huge
point, yeah.
influence in even like in kids or everyone who's go to a store and feel more like connected or open when they see a product. It's not like, oh, this is just for one type of person, you know, or whatever. So you can see more. I think that could be like an inclusivity thing as well. So I was wondering, have you seen any like change, improvement, or not really in the UK?
I mean, in our one of our sessions being a period pro at work, it's like an hour session, I literally have made slides about how the relationship has changed around periods and menstruation in the media. And that's through like adverts of products, right? So the companies that we have traditionally seen are very, as you said, traditionally feminine, lots of pinks, lots of purples, lots of women in heels or women doing marathons and being absolutely fine. And
it's true.
it's so true. And
oh Lord,
we're really seeing, actually, I think in the past, like maybe 5 years or so, a change in particularly the more smaller, local, or even boutique brands of period products, particularly the sustainable ones as well. So where they are being a lot more inclusive and a lot more pared back as well, which is really nice. So there have been a few adverts now that have just been really neutral, showing people that have like they're very ungendered in the way that they're being shown. It's just them in the underwear. It doesn't really matter like who they are or what they are or, you know, any of those things, or where they stand or their social class or anything like that. I think that with period, I guess the conversation around periods and trans inclusivity in general in the UK or in the Western world, it's not as far ahead as I would expect it to be honest. We have alternatively on the slides as well an example from an ungender menstruation campaign in India, which is the coolest campaign I've ever seen. So there were these huge billboards in India that had queer people that menstruate on the slides, and they have blood stains. And they have blood like everywhere of just like where they've had leaks and stuff. But they're visibly queer people that they say, I'm non-binary and I menstruate, or I'm trans and I menstruate.
Love that,
and people would think that would be more of a westernized campaign or more of a campaign that would come from the UK or from the US. And it's not. And it's about reframing that, I guess that ideology that we could learn a lot from other countries, actually.
Totally.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And like, I think sometimes some countries maybe, I don't know, maybe a lot of people just look up to certain countries because they are, as you say, like US, the UK, I don't know, Japan, like these big cities, big countries, you know, because they're supposed to be the ones
kind of
who
like
know
leading
more, or the ones that are like more ahead. And then you see, like, actually, I think we can learn a lot when we kind of look out of our window and see like what others are doing, right?
But it's interesting that you're talking about, you know, for example, with India. So obviously, like, Ayurveda comes from India, and like there's so many practices in Ayurvedic medicine about periods that I think can be so helpful for us, you know, like keeping the womb warm, or like drinking like turmeric milk, for example, can like be a really great anti-inflammatory. So yeah, I think we can like learn so much from lots of different cultures in general, like the way that people are advertising and talking about periods and different practices around periods as well. Is I wanted to talk a little bit about like because you were talking about period products in terms of like sort of what you guys kind of say about like reusable period products. So I'm a big fan of Waka. Do you know like the Waka period pants? Love them. Is that something that Bloody Good Period is kind of pushing in terms of like the relationship between periods and environmentalism?
Yeah, particularly for our workplace stuff. I think for when we're working with refugees, asylum seekers and those that need it most, we want to get them the products that they need and the ones that they're comfortable with. So we're not going to be like, hey, learn how to use a moon cup. Yeah. Like, we're not going to do that to them. That's probably going to be even more traumatizing. Yeah. But on the workplace side of things, we have a list of product partnerships and we work with lots of organizations. And me personally, I love a period pant. I live off them. I think they're so comfortable. Yeah. I actually did a modelling campaign for a period product company. It was one of my first modelling jobs. I love it. And yeah, I think that sustainable products are definitely a great mode, I guess, of managing your period. It's just about what feels comfortable for you. I think a lot of people as well, you know, can feel squeamish around blood and they might not want to wash period pants all the time. Yeah. And that's okay. And it's about within that, if you can find maybe bamboo pads, for example. I think Here We Flow do bamboo pads and they're really cool. And bamboo tampons and those kinds of things. So there are options out there and we're seeing that grow. I think, as I was saying, Here We Flow have recently just been put into supermarkets as of last year. And that's really cool to see like a reusable product being, a sustainable product being compared against the greats, the traditional ones, right?
That's a big one.
In supermarkets. So I'm definitely an advocate for it. And I know that on a workplace perspective, we're like, if you can tick 2 of your EDI pillars off and you can get health and well-being sorted for women and those people that menstruates health and sustainability as well, why not?
Going back to the queer community, the trans community, I was thinking like maybe if a trans person is having a lot of doubts or difficulties of how to go about their periods and like in life, overall, work, life, like how to go about overall on it. Like, which ways maybe like Bloody Good Period can help them? Like, if they're watching this or listen to this and they can be like, oh, maybe they can help me to navigate this. Which ways do you think like the charity can, maybe help them to?
Yeah, so in terms of trans and queer periods, I think having a period and being trans or being queer can feel like an inherently dysphoric experience. It can just feel like a mismatch. Yeah. And I worked in LGBTQ charities and non-profits for a good while, like since I graduated. And I've seen firsthand, you know, the experiences that people go through, like managing everyday gender dysphoria. It is not an easy experience. In terms of Bloody Good Employers and Bloody Good Period, what we do is we advocate across the board. So in terms of the employer side of things, we go into workplaces, we make sure all policies are gender inclusive. And if we come across employees or staff members that are trans that want to have those conversations, we'll be able to support them to have those conversations in the workplace. And we put out a lot on our a lot of guidance on social media as well, particularly Instagram, with how you can manage your period and how we can include trans and non-binary voices in these conversations. So we do what we can. I think the conversation is never enough, but we do our best, and our community of staff at Bloody Good Period is trans and non-binary inclusive, and we've got a really diverse staff team as well. So it's all informed by our own experiences.
That's really beautiful. Yeah. And if I work if in my workplace, I feel like there's no type of inclusivity or non related to periods. Like, what can I do, or what's the process? I just email Bloody
Oh my
Good
God,
Period,
yeah,
or
send me an email.
exactly. We email you. What would be the best way to go on about it? Because I was thinking like in my workplace, I was thinking like, I would like to maybe bring something like, like this would be something like, hey guys, maybe we can, something related to us. I wonder like how will be the process, or like how it start. If someone
send me a
to
DM,
this.
everyone. Send me a DM.
Slide on my DMs.
No, so what you can do is you can send an email over to employers@bloodygoodperiod.com, and you can book a call with either my colleague Alicia or my colleague Vicky, who's brand new this week. Shout out to you, Vicky.
Nice.
And they'll be able to kind of point you in the right direction and make sure you get what you need, because it could be that you want to go ahead and get the full accreditation and become a bloody good employer, or whether you want to be a period advocate and you want to learn a little bit more independently and learn how you can push that through within your organisation, or whether you want to go ahead and book a workshop with us. I mean, little plug, not going to lie, it is going to be Menstrual Health Day on the 28th of the 5th. So if you want to get us in for a session, we would absolutely love that. You can even pick me to come in and speak.
Free ad
hashtag not sponsored.
I think that's
I would love to be
really
a period
great.
advocate. I'm like feeling a calling,
That's what made me
honestly.
think, like how much we can do, like just
Totally.
just bring these conversations, and like all of us in our different like corners, we can just make a bit of a difference, even like bringing this up in our workplaces, to be honest.
You made me think as well, just sort of before we wrap everything up. One thing we haven't covered too much is menopause, the menopause. So I know that that's a big part of the work that you guys do. And obviously, that's a kind of a big thing in a woman's life, and something like sometimes it can be difficult to navigate. I'd just love to hear like a little bit more about the work that you guys are doing to kind of, talk about how you're talking about the menopause, or kind of bring a bit of positivity surrounding that, because I think there's like such a cliche in general about the menopause being this like really awful time, and so many like attachments and cliches around that. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, the main problem with menopause is that it's so closely and inextricably linked with ageism. So we hear very often in workplaces that if you hit the age of menopause, that means you're less useful or less efficient in the workplace, and you might need a little extra hand, which means, are you really going to be like a good investment? When you're looking for a new role and you're someone that's at that age, you can experience a lot of discrimination, and that's really silly, to be honest, because menopause is something that people can experience from the age of 30, if not younger. If you're someone that has endometriosis and you undergo a hysterectomy, you are going to be put under surgical menopause. And if you're someone that's trans and you're taking testosterone, you will undergo hormonal menopause, medical menopause at the same time. But you'll be taking hormones, so it would be a different way to getting a hysterectomy. I think that is probably the first step in reducing some of the stigma around menopause in the workplace. And there is so much information about menopause in workplace culture, I guess EDI culture at the moment as well, because we have such a wealth of really incredible menopause facilitators. And we love to platform that work at Bloody Good Period and Bloody Good Employers. We obviously are called Bloody Good Period, so our main focus is periods, but what we want to be able to do is signpost people to really good menopause support and really good menopause facilitators. And we do on Employers have a focus on menopause as well within our sessions, but we really want to be highlighting the support that's already out there and not be, talking about, I don't really know how to explain it, kind of, we want to be able to profile the people that are already doing really good work, essentially.
Of course.
Makes sense.
And I guess it's that thing of kind of like with periods, menopause will kind of manifest differently for everybody. Like you and I won't have the same periods, and like that's okay. And I think we all just need to kind of, I think what I've taken from this conversation, so many things. Thank you so much. It's been so interesting. But I feel like that really I feel like I am quite open about like communicating about my period, because I literally will tell like anyone I can tell about my endometriosis, because I think it's like, such a horror that like people don't know what it is when it affects. It used to be 1 in 10, but actually they're saying it's more like 1 in 7 women now. So if you think about your office, like that's a ton of women. But I think you've just really encouraged me to like really speak out even more, like even, you know, on social media and like thinking about how we can sort of integrate these things into the workplace, because it's just so important to have these conversations. So.
Yeah, no, 100%. It makes me think like how in media or like even movies, how they never talk about periods. I think recently I've seen more like, for example, like in big movies, they're talking about it. There's a bit more of like women having menopause and kind of breaking this, you know, ageism. It's kind of like, oh, women that are in their 50s and they have menopause, but they're really like portrayed as beautiful, strong. They have like the boyfriends of the careers.
Yeah.
You know, like they're portraying like a different image for women.
It's true.
In menopause, so I think it's good. I mean, there's just a little bit. It's not that much, but I think it's more than before. But it makes me think like with periods, it's not something like it's talk ever in movies so serious.
It's true.
It's very strange.
I'm trying to think
about
there's
it.
there's like a scene in Sex and the City.
I was literally going to say
right?
the same thing.
So it's probably the
It's
only
in the new
example.
one, and just like that, have you seen when
Lily
Lily
gets her period or something? Yeah, that's true.
So it must be the only example. then,
Exactly.
because
And I remember like,
crazy,
well, Samantha thinks she's going through the menopause. You remember that? And then her period comes back in when she's having sex with someone.
Yeah.
And then they're all like, there's another thing about the period I can't remember, but yeah, it's pretty much only that. How about, I haven't seen too much of it, but Sex Education, does that
Quite good.
That's
bit of
good.
a better job?
Yeah. I think definitely, that's a good point.
But
I think that would be maybe the best example that you can find
More
out
is
there.
needed, definitely.
Yeah, because it's like young people that talk freely about everything.
Exactly.
And that's a really good show, by the way.
It's a great show.
It's a
I do
great
love
show.
Sex Education.
Yeah,
Also, my favourite TV show is New Girl, and the period representation in that is
Oh my
incredible.
God, yeah, I used to watch
Yes.
New Girl.
I
That was
love
so
New Girl
cute.
so much.
I love
Are they doing a
it.
reunion of that?
I
Or
don't know.
Did I dream
Don't
that?
tempt me.
Actually,
Maybe.
I think they do. I think
Okay.
they will do
I saw
it. Yeah.
something.
I think they were in a photo together
Yeah.
after so many years. And I bet it was because they're doing a reunion.
That
was
I know
like,
they do a
Good show.
podcast and they like talk about the episodes and what it was like to film them. I'm
Honestly.
a big New Girl nerd.
That was a good show.
Yeah, that was a good
Yeah.
show. Very
Maybe,
good
maybe it was a bit of
sitcom.
ahead of its time because the
Yeah.
show has like, 15 years now?
It's
Yeah,
been a
I think it's
while.
had a resurgence over the past
Yeah.
like 2
Yeah,
or 3
yeah.
years. I've watched it probably about 20 times. It's my
Love that.
ultimate comfort show, and their
Oh, that's amazing.
period representation is really good.
That's
It's true.
Really
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Actually, I forgot about New Girl. What a good show.
Yeah, very good. Well, is there anything else that you want to talk about that we haven't spoken about? Anything you'd like to sort of like leave our listeners with?
I think that's it from me. I mean, please do give Bloody Good Period a follow on socials. And if your workplace is interested in Bloody Good employers, send us a message, employers@bloodygoodperiod.com for emails. Feel free to like follow us on LinkedIn, I guess too. Like,
Definitely.
Why
I don't know.
not?
I don't really remember what the plug is. Is LinkedIn the plug or like I
Maybe
don't know. We'll see.
Instagram or like
I
you guys
mean,
are on
you can
Instagram.
do that as well. Yeah,
Everywhere and
follow us.
anywhere.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
find us on all platforms.
Amazing. Thank
Good.
you.
Yeah, that's been such a really, really
Thank
nice time.
you
I think
so much.
I'm so happy that I think you're our first like in-person guest.
I
This
can't
is
believe I'm the first
this
guest.
is like an amazing conversation. And I think it's so
Definitely,
like important to have it as well. So I
Totally.
think thank you very much to
Yeah.
like
Thank you for
come here
having
talking to
me.
us, joining us. And
And guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
Yeah.
Basically. Bye,
Thank you,
guys.
Familia. See you next time. Bye.